Okay, it's time to play. I'm going to make a little phone stand for your mobile phone, but I want to show you the halving joint. This is the sweetest joint in the whole world, and you can make it with just a few tools. So let's get started and I'll show you how to do it. So there's two pieces of Meranti. I've cut one for the base and now I'm going to cut the other for the back. I'm going to make it a little bit longer to accommodate the longer phone, but you can make yours any dimension you like. This is called Meranti. It's an Indonesian wood that you can just get at your local hardware or Bunnings. I think the dimensions are about 66 wide and 12 mil thick. So it's quick and it's easy to work with, and it's really pretty. It'll come up really nicely with oil. So to start with, we need to mark, well, I need the other piece. So I'm going to mark up this one and cut it with a Tenon saw. 140, and I'm just going to double check that that's not too long. So I want it 20 mil longer than the other one, and actually it's more than that, so I'm going to bring that back a bit. So you can make yours, as I said, anything you like, and I'm going to make mine that. This is going to be the face of it, so I have a face mark on it and a face edge mark on it. I want to square down the sides, that side and this side, so that I've got something to look at as I'm sawing. It's got a little Supercraft, very, very sharp. I'm using my bench hook, and I want to keep this bit, so I'm going to turn this around to the left and hold on to the piece that I want to keep and cut on the waist side. My left foot is forward and my right foot is back. I'm going to come just beside the line. Draw it back a couple of times until it'll go forward, and then very lightly get started and follow that line all the way along. I'll see you on the other side of this. Okay, that was quick. Sharp saw. So I don't need that. I've got my two pieces. And now I want to create this joint. You can see that I've cut half out of one and half out of the other. And I want to be able to do these as quickly as possible. We have to always do that in woodwork. It's very important to get done.
Serious.
And I'm going to create some lines on the wood so that I can see this markings clearly. Squeezing them together, I'm going to square across that one. And then to get the thickness, I could measure the wood and then measure on here, but why don't I just use the thickness of the wood?
Genius.
That will make it easier. Little mark. Don't use it as a ruler, otherwise it'll move on you. Put that one back so it's exactly in line with the other one that it was before, and square across both. And this part is really important, that all you can see is line and line on the other side of the wood. So I balance my wood there, and you can see line, wood and line. It's not too big and it's not too small, and that's vital for this joint because you don't want it too sloppy and big, and you don't want it too tight where it won't go in. So this part of the marking out is really important to take your time. So now I'm going to square those lines down, and I'm going to just go halfway. Now I don't know what halfway is because I haven't measured it, but I've got a really cool tool here called a marking gauge with a little spike on it, and a block that moves around. And if I set that to the middle of the end of the wood and do it up, when I say set it to the middle, I'm just guessing that, and push a little dot in, turn, and do it again, you can see that I'm not quite in the middle. So I've undone the little knob again and gone in the middle, and then in a new place, this is on the end so I'm not going to see it. In a new place, there we go, I'm going into the same hole. From that edge and that edge are the same. So that tells me I'm in the middle. So now that's set, I can then, between my two lines here, come from this surface here that I've just made the marks on, that's really important, and make a little dot and square it across to the dot. And this is instrumental in getting a clean cut with your chisel. So you can go as deep as you can, go over it a couple of times. Make sure you've got that dot on the far side, otherwise you could go too far. So now I've got two lines and a sharp indentation here. Now you can do that with a knife if you haven't got a marking gauge, that's fine, as long as it's the middle. Now I need to turn around and do the same to the other side, but I haven't got my lines on it yet, so I better do that. And again, making sure these lines line up with those. Don't be sloppy about this piece, about that step, because it's really important that the measuring is really accurate. And then you mark the waist. So if you can go and have a cup of tea, or a friend comes, then when you come back to your work, you know exactly what you're going to cut out. And then you do the same to the other one, exactly the same. Now you'll notice here that this one has a little hole in it, and we're doing the base here. And this hole is for the cord to go through. Now some of you will have Android phones, and this could be a lot wider, so make sure that your hole is going to be able to accept that, and that this suits you, so you can make it to your own design. I've chosen a spade bit, and it is 14 mil wide. This will give me a clean cut through the wood. Now you can either do this now, before you do your halving joint, or later. Now you can see how here it's really vulnerable. The wood has already started to crack away. So this very thin part is really vulnerable. So I would prefer to keep the circle away from this cut if possible. So that's what we'll do on our one. Instead of cutting the circle now on this one, I'm going to cut the joint first. And I'll do that in a vise. So I'm going to use a vise to hold the wood while I cut it. And I want to put it with the face side out, and it almost down to the line that I just drew with my marking gauge. And for this cut, we're going to use the Tenon saw again. And for the other one, I'm going to show you the Japanese saw. Pistol grit on your saw, and I'm going to cut the the line on the left first because I can see it really easily. And I want you to have a look how close my teeth are to the line, but how important it is not to take the line out. That I want to keep the line. So start really gently. Even though it's got great big teeth, you can do really fine cuts with the Tenon saw. And you've got a line on this side and a line on the other side, so you can see whether you're sawing straight or not, and that's really handy. And you go right down to the line, but don't go over it. I've got a lovely sharp pencil here, and I can go in the groove that I made so I can see it. And I'm pretty much there. I'll just do one more gentle cut. Now, as I've been talking, it's very easily, you can go on the line, take the line out. You might have cut too far away from the line, and I've got a great example there. I've cut too far away from the line. You can see line and wood. We don't want that. So that means that if I cut this one perfectly, this halving joint would be too tight. So I've got a second chance. I'm going to turn the wood around so that now my the line I'm going to cut is still on my left, which is advantageous for me because it means that I'm not peering over the saw if it was on the other side. Take the other piece of wood and come and have a look at how much of that little gap on this side I'm showing there. So that's too much, that's not enough. I want the merest crack showing. And once you've got that, then you look at the other side to see if your line that you did in the first place is relevant. And mine's gone. So very gently just make a little mark there. And I don't know whether you can see, but it's a whole pencil line in difference. So that's great because now it means I've got a second chance to do it. I haven't cut the other one, so I'm not matching it to anything yet. And I can go over that, put this one back, just the merest crack, and I want to see my line and I want to keep my line. Because I'm right-handed, I'm going to cut on into the waist. Okay, so I'm ready to cut the other side, and I want to leave the line. I actually call it kissing the line, so I'm very, very close. The stance of my body is so that I can have good balance. I'm just going to take my hand out of the way so you can see how close I am to the line. And I'm only doing little short strokes to start with, so I've got a little bit more control. And they're very light strokes. I'm not pushing hard. This cuts on the push stroke, like that. But I'm just doing very light strokes and doing my best to stay beside the line. Woo! Squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. And right down to the line, but not over it. And out. Okay, now you can leave it there because there's something really exciting going to happen now. We're going to use a chisel and a mallet. Chisel and a mallet. You'll notice that your chisel has a bevel on it. It's flat one side, bevel the other. We are going to put the bevel side up in that gap there, right in the marking gauge line. And then I'm going to come around this side. So I'm holding it with my left hand And you'll notice that I'm holding it dead flat. Am I holding it flat? Good. That's really important. You don't want to have it up or too far down. So now I'm going to tap it with a sort of a, not too hard, but a sort of a flick. And you saw the top move. That's exciting. And again. Now if you want to, you can turn it around and come from the other way, because sometimes it can tear. But I'm going to keep going. And again. Now it's not playing ball, so I will turn it around. How exciting is that? Turn it around. So you might get really tempted to pick that out with your fingers, but sharp blades are better for giving a clean cut. So I go in there with our little joint. And flat with your chisel, horizontal with your chisel. And this time I won't do a hard flick, I'll just tap it gently, because it's only the merest little amount. And then have a look over here, over the top. So I'm not going to clean that up because I want to see the consequences, show you the consequences of that later. And if you can't wait to see how it looks, we haven't cut the other one yet, but you can see if your piece of wood will fit down. Now this is where, don't get too excited and force it, because you could split it. So it's a little bit tight, but just know that when the other one has the gap in it, it'll be a lot easier to go down there. So I'm happy with that. So I would do the other one exactly the same. I want to introduce you to the Japanese saw. This is a favorite with a lot of my students because it is really light. When you compare it with a Tenon saw, it's just a whole different ball game. So our Western saw cuts on the push stroke and the Eastern saw cuts on the pull stroke. Okay, body position is similar. You can hold it any way that's comfortable. This is how I hold the Japanese saw. It may not be completely right, but you'll find your own way. We'll get the same result. So I come right close to my line, but I don't want to go on top of my line. Push it forward to get started. Remember, it cuts on the pull stroke. So if you push it forward, you've got a little bit more control just to start. And then you'll feel it cut on the pull stroke. It really is a lovely saw, but I can't cut straight with it. Just a very light touch. Don't need any boot strength. So I'll have to move my wood in the vise. It's actually hitting the table, I think. Let me just see. Oh, I've gone way beyond. I didn't mark my bottom line, so I've actually gone too far. Have a little look there. There's my line. There's where I should have stopped. And that's where I went to. Now, whoopsies. So now I'm going to lay my wood on, just like I did before. Halfway over the gap, so there's just a little crack. And check that I'm on track with my other line, which I am, which I'm really happy with. So I want line, wood, and line. No, nothing else. I'm turning the piece around. I think what took me to is that my lines didn't stop halfway. My lines were just guessed. So I suggest that you, if that happens to you, that you rub those out so that you've got nice tidy marking joint there, so your lines don't lead on and lead you astray. Okay, other side. Beside my line, push it to start. And you can be looking at the other side as well. Remember, your markings are on both sides, so it's useful to look both sides. Okay, oh no, leave it in there. Now for the fun bit, the chisel bit. So come around this side and have a look. Remember, the flat of the chisel is going to go in underneath, and I'm keeping the chisel horizontal. Little tap, very satisfying. Woohoo!
What do you say?
I think it's great. And ta-da! So I take this one out, and now see how much more room I've got now. It should slip over much more easily. But again, if it's too tight, then don't force it, or otherwise it can split the wood. It's quite vulnerable. So you can give a little tap with this part of your fist until it's flush. And there we go. Sweet. And then we're just going to do our hole now with the spade. When you've pushed it together, you can now mark where your hole is going to go. So remember, I said I'd like my hole a little bit further away from the joint. So measure across 66, 67, half of that. What's the half of that, Liz?
33.5.
33.5. Excellent. And make across. Then now when you're taking apart, depending on how tight it is, if it's quite loose, you can do that by hand. But if it's a little stiffer, you need to be very careful that you don't destroy it. So the joint is coming in this way. I've secured it in the vise, and I just want to tap it back, bit by bit. You don't want to strain it at all. I'm going to use an old bit of scrap so that when I drill into my piece, I don't drill into my workbench. So this is a spade bit, and it will drill a hole that wide in my timber. This one's 14 mil. Clamp the wood down. If I try and make a hole in this wood without clamping it, it's going to spin, and I want both my hands on the drill. And we'd like it to place the middle of the spike in the middle of the cross that you've made, and I want to hold the drill upright. Now sometimes it's really hard when you're above it to know whether you're holding it upright or not. So you can get a little bit of wood to support you. Just stand a bit of wood there. So at least you know one way you're standing, you're straight. You may not know this way or that. I'm going to go all the way through the wood into this piece to give me a clean cut on the other side. Make sure your drill is going forward. Mine's going backwards. That was a good discovery. In the middle there, upright. A little bit of weight on here. You don't have to push hard, but you need full power the whole time. Go. And if I'd clamped it a little bit harder, I wouldn't have got that little jump at the end. Okay, there we go. And back. fun. That was your first halving joint. You saw how few tools I used, and you can make your own little phone stand at home with the kids. Try it out, it's really good. So do it.